March 1st, 1917. It worked! I'm having a very pleasant day in bed. Mother is off at the picket line, of course. Marietta always comes up with cinnamon toast and tea and Jell-O when I am sick. I love Jell-O. I think Jell-O is the most fabulous invention ever. I think it is right up there with the automobile. Mr. Jell-O should really be as rich as Henry Ford, in my book. I might do some percentages, but I am reading Ivanhoe. It is a novel by Sir Walter Scott all about a chivalrous knight who returns to England from the Crusades. There are two beautiful heroines in it, Rowena and Rebecca, the Jewess. They are both lovely. I can't decide which one I would most like to be, although I know it is difficult being Jewish then and now. But Rebecca is so beautiful. She has jet black hair and high coloring. So unlike me. I have mousy brown hair that is perfectly straight and eyes that are no color, although Mother persists in calling them grazel because she says they are not quite hazel and not exactly gray. Later. Talked on the phone to Alma, and now, because I miss school, I might not play left wing in field hockey. Today was the first hockey practice. Not really practice, because it was too awful to go outside, but they went over to the gym in the Ladies' Metro Club, which we are allowed to use for calisthenics, and they did a walkabout hockey game to explain to the new girls about the positions and how you play them. Posey Elder, who clomps around like an elephant, played left wing. I am so mad. Left wing requires speed and quick thinking, neither of which Posey has. You also have to be able to keep a picture of the entire field and everyone's position in your head at all times. I am not sure it was worth it staying home. I love hockey. March 2nd, 1917. Squeaked through the math test. Thank heavens. Alma and I went over to the National Women's Party headquarters to help with banners for the inauguration. They say women are flocking in from all over. Mrs. Belmont came over to us and gave an especially warm hello to Alma. I think maybe Mrs. Belmont knows about Alma's parents. March 3rd, 1917. This is astonishing. A Negro lady and her daughter are picketing on the lines. I saw her when I went over to deliver some soup for Mother and Auntie Claire. Auntie Claire said, "It's wonderful, but there go any hopes for Southern congressmen supporting us." No school tomorrow because of the president's inauguration. Later. Mother has come home early from the picket line because she plans to rise at 4 o'clock in the morning to begin to organize for the march. She is in the group that is to go with the delegation to present to the president the resolutions drawn up at the convention that just took place. They all have very high hopes because President Wilson actually said that he, quote, admired their tenacity. They hope, with the great show tomorrow, and so many women coming from the western states, that the president will receive their resolutions and take them to Congress. I think there is a very good chance. To think that this picket line has been going on for nearly 3 months. Oh, how wonderful it would be to have Mother back. I miss her when I come home from school. She always used to be here to open the door for me. And I think it has been more than a week since she sat down to dinner with us. Yes, I know I am being selfish. Alma would never complain this way. And poor Alma has only her awful father left at home. I, at least, have a very fine, loving father who tries hard to understand everybody. March 4th, 1917. It was 3:30 in the morning, and I heard something stirring in my room, and then I smelled Mother. She always has a powder-fresh scent about her, and she was bending over to kiss me before she left in the pitch blackness of the new day. "Oh, I didn't mean to wake you. Just wanted to give you a kiss." Mother looked absolutely radiant in the darkness, her brown eyes shining. She seemed to just tingle with excitement. I was suddenly alert and not at all sleepy. "Oh, Mother, can I go with you?" "It's awful out there," she said. I turned to the window and saw sleet and rain slashing across the pane. The wind drove the rain so hard it was almost falling sideways. It was a real gale, and my mother, like a stalwart ship, was sailing out right into the teeth of it, and with such hopes. I watched her through the window as she walked down the street, lashed by the wind. 2 more women joined her at the corner. They walked past the admiral's statue. I am so proud of my mother. She is as brave as any admiral who ever sailed any sea. But Father is right. It is inconvenient. I pray that President Wilson sees reason. Then all this might soon end. March 5th, 1917. It is late. A terrible gloom has settled over our house and seems to seep out of every crack. I watch Mother. She has sat with her hand on her cup of tea for over 20 minutes and has not taken a sip. She keeps muttering the same words. The gate where Mrs. Wilson's clothes and other packages are left. That gate. That is where they wanted us to leave the resolutions. Then she squinches her eyes shut tight, as if trying to banish the very picture. You see, what happened was really awful. I even saw much of it with my own eyes, as did Alma. More than 1,000 women marched in the procession yesterday morning. Mother, as I said, left at 3:30 in the morning. But Alma and I did not get there until close to 9. There were so many women and so many women's daughters that had come to watch that it was not hard to join the procession. It was like a parade, so they didn't have the rules of the picket line about having to be 21. Anyone in America can join a parade, and we did. We even helped carry banners on the poles. The poles were so newly varnished that they became sticky in our hands, but with all that rain. We marched up Pennsylvania Avenue. Mother and Auntie Claire were at the head with the women who were to deliver the resolutions to the president. The streets were lined with spectators huddled under umbrellas. The rain never stopped, and the gusty winds took many an umbrella, or often turned one inside out. Alma and I were snug as bugs in rugs, for Father had given both of us old Macintoshes left over from the Spanish-American War. He had liked his first one so much that he had purchased 2 others. Mother had one tailored to fit her just before the picket line started. Ours did not fit, especially mine. I looked as if I were standing in a hole. Alma's, because she is taller, fit better. In any case, we were warm and dry. There were bands for the inauguration, and they had already started playing rousing tunes like the Battle Hymn of the Republic. As we approached the White House, we noticed there were hundreds of policemen. The lady next to me said they had brought in police from Baltimore. The president must have been scared to death to bring in these coppers. When we got to the White House gates, we were shocked to find them locked. Alma saw an opening in the line to where Auntie Claire and Mother stood by the gates with Lucy Burns, Mrs. Belmont, Alice Paul, and Miss Ann Martin, the leaders of the delegation. Somehow we managed to get very close and heard everything. Miss Martin spoke to the guard very politely. We have come to present some important resolutions to the President of the United States. I have orders to keep the gates locked, ma'am. But there must be some mistake. Surely the President does not mean to refuse to see, at least, he cut her off. Those are my orders, ma'am. Will you carry a message to the President that we are waiting to see him? Miss Martin asked. The guard left for a few minutes and then came back. I have orders to answer no questions and to carry no messages. He then directed the delegation to an entrance where they could leave their resolutions, and that was when my mother asked what the entrance was used for. Mrs. Wilson's packages, her shopping. The entire suffrage movement, women's right to vote, had been considered no more important than some department store gewgaw that Mrs. Wilson had purchased on her latest shopping expedition. It was terrible. The women were incensed. But did they stop marching? No. All day through the stinging wind-driven rain, they continued, and more women joined them. Then late that afternoon, the big luxurious limousine carrying the president and his wife rolled out of the White House grounds and through the gates. We were all standing there with our banners. But the president and Mrs. Wilson looked straight ahead, as if their heads had been bolted onto their shoulders. All hopes were dashed in that instant. After 3 months of picketing, nothing has come of it. And my mother, who set out this morning before the break of day so full of hope, looks broken herself now, muttering the same words over and over in the wing chair, and not touching her tea. March 10th, 1917. All of us have had the most miserable colds. I missed several days of school, but now I look forward to Cassie coming home for a school vacation. The weather is much better. Hockey practice begins next week. I hope that all this nonsense about Posey playing left wing will just disappear. I can't wait to see Cassie. I want to hear about college and her beaus and living in the dormitory at Radcliffe and what Boston is like. Nobody ever talks about anything fun around here. It's all the picket line, women's suffrage, and the Great War. It makes me sound like a very trivial person, doesn't it? Well, perhaps I am. You know, not everybody can be born for great and noble causes. And that's a fact. March 13th, 1917. Cassie has come home, and all she wants to talk about is great and noble causes. Yes, she wants to quit college and join the picket line, and then Nell started talking to her about the Women's Ambulance Corps. And I wanted to hear about boyfriends, and at least Boston, and the swan boats. Yes, they have these boats that you can sit on that are shaped like huge swans, and they paddle you around in them on the pond in the Boston Public Gardens. Mother and Father will not let her quit college, however. They are very much in agreement on this. All right. I know that what I am going to say next would cause Mother and all the women in the National Women's Party to have conniptions. But Cassie is so beautiful that I think it is a shame that she does not currently have a beau and is no longer interested in going to parties and tea dances. When she came home after freshman year, that is all she talked about, and we went to the department store and got her some lovely tea dancing dresses. Cassie's hair is as curly as mine is straight, and it has wonderful auburn highlights. I think it is a complete waste that all she wants to do is join the picket line, and that all she talks about is how none of the boys she knows at Harvard believes in women having the vote. Therefore, she will have nothing to do with them. When I tried to reason with her, she blurted out, "You want me to end up with another Uncle Bayard?" Of course not, but there must be something in between. She and Nell just sigh wearily over what I guess they consider my ignorance. March 15th, 1917. Young Bayard, or Barney as everyone calls Alma's brother, came over to take Cassie to a country club dance out in Silver Springs. She very reluctantly had agreed to go before she came home. She looked lovely in an old printed silk dress of Mother's, embroidered with pearls and bugle beads. Of course Cassie would look fabulous in a laundry bag. Later. Holy smokes! Cassie came back early from the dance tonight. She was delivered to our door by an absolutely incensed Barney, who said that she had made a spectacle of herself. Cassie fumed at him. That crowd needs a few more spectacles. No pun intended. But in terms of vision, they are absolutely myopic, and in terms of social conscience, they are Neanderthals. "You don't shout down the Attorney General of the United States, Cassandra," Barney hissed. "What?" My father stood gasping in his smoking jacket. I had come down in my robe, and Mother and Nell just stood on the stairs looking confused. Here is what happened. They were at the country club, and Cassie said they were at a table with a group of young people and having a very nice time. A gentleman named Mr. Gregory, the Attorney General of the United States, came over to the table to say hello to a niece. He commented on how nice it was to see young women all in silk and dancing and having such a good time, and that he was happy that none of them was mixed up with the suffragists who nearly spoiled the inauguration. Cassie says she didn't say a thing until he said, "You know what I would do if I was one of those policemen? I'd just take a hose out with me, and when the women come out with their banners, why, I'd squirt the hose on them." There was a lot of tittering around the table. Then he said, "If you can make what a woman does look ridiculous, you can sure kill it." That was too much for Cassie. She jumped up and said, "Mr. Gregory, my mother and aunt were among those women. What right would those policemen have to attack these women? Did it ever occur to you, as the highest officer of the law of the land, that squirting water from a hose on law-abiding citizens might make you and the office of the Attorney General, not to mention the government, look ridiculous? I think you should resign." Well, Mother sank down on the step where she stood, and Nell let out a whoop, and Father just looked plain amazed. I have to admit, I am really proud of Cassie. Imagine calling down the Attorney General of the United States of America. I suppose it is more exciting than riding on a swan boat, but Father and Mother are still making her go back to school for the term. March 16th, 1917. Idiot Cousin Barney blabbed to his father about what happened at the country club. Uncle Bayard called up Father and ranted on about Cassie's behavior and how it was going to be the ruination of him and his family, and that they would all get thrown out of the country club. And now he forbids any contact between the children of his household and ours. Father looked quite gray when he hung up the phone. He muttered something I didn't understand, which was, "To forbid is to invite trouble. I don't know how I am to avoid contact with Alma. We go to the same school." March 19th, 1917. Worst day of my life. Unbelievable that this all could happen on one day. I guess I should list these in order of worldwide importance, which has very little to do with my feelings. 1. The Germans sank 3 American merchant ships in the last 2 days, so we are going to enter the war. 2. Tsar Nicholas was overthrown in Russia. No more Romanovs after 300 years of their ruling, and people are killing each other in the streets of Moscow. 3. Alma is being sent to Ashmont. It is very odd to contemplate these 3 separate things or events. They are all disconnected, but in some way I feel that they might be connected, in ways we cannot see. I feel that we are on the brink of a changing world, and maybe it begins or ends in little households like ours and Alma's. I could not bear the thought of Alma being at Ashmont. March 20th, 1917. She's gone already. Just whisked away. No time for goodbyes. All of her school books and notebooks left in her desk. I could not believe it when Miss Pruitt said Alma Minette had been withdrawn. I never expected it to happen so soon. I couldn't stand it. Still can't. I'm going to do something. I'm not sure what. When I found out this morning, I simply could not bear to be in school another minute. I pretended I was sick and asked to go home. So here I am. Marietta, my usual source of information, is out marketing. Later. I decided to find out myself what's going on, so I went over to Alma's house. The more I walked, the madder I got, until I arrived at Alma's and knocked on the door as loud as I could. Juby came to answer. I could see she had been crying. "What's going on?" I asked. "Nothing no good," she answered. Then Henry came. Haughty, arrogant, gosh, I hate him. So Henry said he'd handle this. I demanded to know where Alma was. "Gone to Ashmont with Clary and the young ones," Harry said. "Without saying goodbye?" "No goodbyes were needed," he replied stiffly. What a pathetic response. When he turned to go inside, for we had been standing on the front stoop, I kicked him right in the seat of his pants. He went sprawling. I really didn't know my legs were that strong. I mean, I should be playing soccer instead of hockey. By the way, I am going to be left wing, but it seems to mean very little now in the scope of things. March 21st, 1917. I am being punished for kicking Henry in the pants. It's no punishment, really. I just have to come home directly from school every afternoon for 2 weeks. It would be too sad to go to the Ardmore without Alma. To eat a banana split alone is unthinkable, and even though lime ricky season is right around the corner, it just wouldn't be the same sitting there all by myself sucking that fizzy greenness through a straw. You know, Alma never slurped or made sucking noises with her straw. I do. I couldn't stand listening to my own disgusting slurping without Alma's chatter to camouflage it. The real problem is no one will tell me anything about Alma's vanishing, as now I think of it. I asked Mother, and all she said was, "It's not only Alma, dear. It's Clary and Beauregard and Gerald and Halsey and Davis. Auntie Claire is beside herself." "Are you going to do anything about it?" I asked. "I really can't do much. It's a matter for lawyers, really. It's all very complicated." I decided to have a visit with Marietta the first chance I got. P.S. A special session of Congress was called. It's about whether we should go to war. March 22nd, 1917. Went up to Marietta's room on the 4th floor late last night. She claims I scared the daylights out of her, tapping on the door. "Thought you were some dang German." This irritated me. All anybody can think about is the war. I want to think about Alma. I had forgotten how teeny tiny Marietta's room is. It is 1/4 the size of mine. She, of course, keeps it 4 times as neat as I do. I just came out point blank and asked her about Alma. "He done kidnapped dem children. Evil. No good evil." This is what I needed to hear. No mincing words. No talk of lawyers. "How did he do it?" "He done got Joss to stuff 'em all in that Packard and drove 'em down to Ashmont in the middle of the night." "But what about Auntie Claire?" "Well, what do you suppose? She started screaming her head off when she found out. It seems Mr. Minette put some powder in her tea that night when she come home from the picket line, so she slept real sound. She didn't find out until late in the morning when she finally woke up." Powder in the tea? I was stunned. This was criminal. Yep, Juby saw him do it. I didn't know how she could stand living in that house a minute longer. But she had gone over to Mrs. Belmont's, Marietta told me. "Why didn't she come here?" I asked. "Oh, she probably don't want to drag your mama and daddy into it. And I tell you, Mr. Minette, he be scared of Mrs. Belmont. She's one powerful lady." Told you, diary. When you want to find out something, you go to Marietta. No beating around the bush with her. I am not any happier. I mean, Alma is still gone, but at least I know the whole story. I cannot stand adults who do not give children complete information. I shall never do that as a parent. Never, never, never. March 23rd, 1917. Exactly 2 weeks until my 14th birthday and Alma's. We always had a joint celebration. March 25th, 1917. A letter from Alma! My hands are still trembling. I have read it 10 times and they still tremble. It was just as Marietta described. Alma is devastated. She is most worried about her mother and the effect all this will have on her. She says the babies, Halsey and Davis, whine all day. Beauregard is better because they have given him a pony. She says her grandma, Sunday Minette, real Southerners often have strange names, is unbearable. Here is exactly what she writes about her. Granny Sunday is the most ill-named woman in the world. She is like a perpetual dark cloud looming on the horizon. She squawks at all of us constantly, but gets a particular edge in her voice when she speaks to me. You see, I remind her of that Yankee woman, that's how she still refers to Mother, who married her precious son. She blames all of Clary's problems on that thin Yankee blood from up north. She is going to try and turn me into a proper Southern girl, so she insists that I read less. I told her flat out that I thought, first of all, this was an insult to Southern women, and that I had no intention of reading less. I say bravo for Alma. Alma is so incredibly smart. She thinks of clever things to say, and does not act impulsively like me, and go around kicking stupid men in the pants. Although, I am still glad I did it. I am going to write to her right away. March 29th, 1917. It was a real lime-ricky kind of day, hot and sunshiny, the cherry blossoms all bursting out. There is something odd about it all. However, our first real spring day, and all anyone talks about is war. I hear about what is happening over there on the front, as they call it. I see the terrible reports in the newspapers, and the pictures of wounded, the smoke and fire from bombs. And here in Washington, there are pink cherry blossoms bursting in the air. What an odd world we live in.